It's time for the Southern California Foreclosure Report, where we give you the up-to-the-minute data on notices of default, notices of trustee sale, and bank-owned homes in Southern California. And there's a county in Southern California that's number 2 in the nation for foreclosure starts. We're going to share which one that is. And stick around to the end because there are 2 other counties that have just been deemed vulnerable in this changing real estate market. Hey there, Christian Walsh, real estate agent with Wire Associates. We have been helping buyers and sellers make the best data-driven decisions in this crazy market. This is the most thorough place to get the numbers you need to know on where foreclosures are headed in Southern California. So if you're ready to dive into the notices of default, trustee sale REOs for LA, San Diego, Orange County, Riverside, San Bernardino, and Ventura counties, hit that like button. And let's get started. Let's dive into the foreclosure data. And here we are with the foreclosure starts, and also known as notices of default. Why do we call them foreclosure starts? Not a trick question. It is the start of the foreclosure process. So remember, notices of default come after minimum of 120 days after payment is missed. Then 90 days later, we have the notice of trustee sale. And then 21 days later, there can be the trustee sale. Usually takes way longer than that, but those are the guidelines for the foreclosure process. So here we are. We're going to start with the month-over-month data. We are looking all the way back to August of 2021, just over a full year of data here. And one of these counties doesn't look like the other. And let's see if you can figure out which it is. You guessed it. Los Angeles. We'll get Los Angeles out of the way. You can see some of the other counties for August have increases in the notices of default, but none of these are extreme record highs. Now, San Diego, it's a little bit higher. We can see that Riverside is higher, but it was higher back in March. We can actually see a decrease in Ventura in the notices of default filed. But Los Angeles sees a big increase, and it's bigger than we've seen since all the way back to August of 2021. Now, bear in mind, a lot of this time it was a foreclosure moratorium, so stuff wasn't being foreclosed on. But why do we see this big increase? In fact, this big increase, according to Adam data in the month of August, this is the second highest level of notices of default, of foreclosure starts recorded in any county in the United States. This is a big number. Now, to be fair, Los Angeles also has a lot more properties than most other counties throughout the United States. But that being said, we still have this big increase. Now, what I'm going to attribute to is the LA eviction moratorium. That, I believe, is part of what is driving the increase in foreclosure starts. Both LA City and LA County are still under eviction moratorium, which means that if a tenant is not paying rent, that the landlord cannot evict them. And what we're finding, and we're hearing from landlords out there, because a big part of our content is directed towards landlords, we're seeing that they're saying they haven't been paid in almost 2 years, and it doesn't look like there's any end in sight. Maybe the end of the year, maybe longer. So they can't afford to make payments anymore. So that's why I think we're seeing this increase. It is related to the eviction moratorium. So let me know your thoughts. Why do you think we're seeing this big increase specifically in Los Angeles County? Put that in the comments below. Moving on to the next step of the foreclosure process. So 120 days passed, we gave the notice of default. Now 90 days passed, and it's the notice of trustee sale. Now we see that there is an increase. It is not a record level of increases in any of the counties, in particular in Los Angeles. And why aren't we seeing a big increase for notices of trustee sale? Well, the short answer is not enough time has passed. So they're still getting to that point where the notice of trustee sale is going to be issued, and that is a minimum of 90 days. It usually takes longer. So we will see in the months ahead a spike in Los Angeles County in the notice of trustee sale. One quick thing to point out here in the month-over-month data, we do see in Orange County that there is an increase in the notices of trustee sale. These aren't scary or dangerous numbers, and I'm going to put them into perspective perspective later. But it does look like we have the largest increase in notices of trustee sale in Orange County. But again, not scary numbers. In fact, August of 2021, there were 99 and we're at 78. It's just a big month over month increase. So now we've switched to year over year data. We want to spread the picture out. We want to give you a bigger picture on what's going on. And you can see that when you do that, going back to 2015, the notices of default in Los Angeles still look very high. That dip we see in all the counties in 2020 and 2021, those were foreclosure moratoria. Now we're at a point where banks can foreclose again, and we're seeing an increase. In fact, all counties in Southern California are up, and they're up over 2015 through 2019 levels when we had a more normal level of foreclosures. Now, this is not yet shocking or alarming because we still have to catch up. Because we were down in 2020 and 2021, we've got to catch up. So we should see an increase like this. Bringing in some perspective, we can go back to 2011 for data for notices of default. So 2011 for notices of default. If you've been watching these videos, and of course, I know you have, so I appreciate that. If you've been watching these, you'll see that the notices of default in 2011 were already decreasing. It's when we get to the notice of trustee sale where we see some bigger numbers, that next phase of foreclosure. So let's continue with the numbers. Notice of trustee sale year over year, going back to 2015, put it in perspective, still pretty unremarkable numbers for notice of trustee sale. You see the dip in 2020, you see things went up in 2021 around this time, and things continue to go up. For some counties, there's a dip. And some perspective, we go back to 2011 and we see the notices of trustee sale. Big numbers when you compare those to today. You can see that we, from a foreclosure standpoint, are nowhere near those higher numbers. The data is capped at 2011 from Black Knight for notice of trustee sale. If we were to go back even further, we'd be able to see 2009, 2010, these numbers were way higher. And the last phase of foreclosure, in fact, that goes from foreclosure to foreclosed, would be real estate owned, REO. Another way to look at these as repossessed homes, homes that went back to the bank. Could I say that any other way? That's it. You get the point. These are homes that have gone back to the bank. You can see the tiny numbers starting 2020, 2021, 2022. Why aren't we seeing a big increase into 2022? You know the answer if you've been watching these videos. There's several answers. One is they're still working their way through the foreclosure process. They're still way back in the notice of default or notice of trustee sale. They haven't been foreclosed on. The other side of the coin is that a lot of people still have equity. They miss a payment, they get the notice of default, maybe they get into notice of trustee sale, but they can sell and make money. I mean, they don't need to go to foreclosure. So somebody comes in and buys their home, they walk away, the foreclosure process stops because it's not being foreclosed on anymore. And they're not getting to this last phase. The other side of it is all these homes aren't going back to the bank because we know that investors are still purchasing homes. Now that appetite will slow down, but when you've got, and let's get these numbers out of the way. When you have such tiny numbers, in Orange County, one home went back to the bank in all of August. Same thing in July. And don't forget to watch our video on how the trustee sale auction process has changed. Qualified bidders are able to buy the property after it's foreclosed on. You've got to check that out. There aren't that many properties making it all the way to that phase, but the ones that do, things have dramatically changed. So check out that video. And a little more perspective, we bring in 2012 numbers as far as we can go for REO homes. And look at the difference in 2012 in Los Angeles County. In the month of August, this is 1 month of data, 666 homes, it's a scary number, went back to the lender in August of 2012. So when we talk about a wave of foreclosures, we are nowhere near that. Thanks for sticking around to the end. We promise to share the 2 vulnerable counties in Southern California. And Adam Data, which is a great data service provider, particularly for foreclosure numbers and information, just released a special risk housing report about the 50 most vulnerable counties across the nation as the market continues to shift. These are places where we are likely to see an increase in foreclosures. So what Adam Data did was crunch the numbers on housing affordability, the number of homes currently in foreclosure, number of homes underwater, and unemployment. and have deemed 50 counties across the nation as the most vulnerable to a change in home values and potentially foreclosure. The two in Southern California that Adam Data has designated as being the most vulnerable are San Bernardino and Riverside counties. Now, this doesn't mean the entire county is going to be in foreclosure anytime soon, but what this does mean is that you need to watch the numbers. We're going to continue to track the numbers here on this channel, so make sure you're subscribed. And you can also sign up for a foreclosure.com account so you can see when the notice of default is filed and track them all the way through. We have a special link below, and we're going to release additional content in the future on how to best take advantage of foreclosure.com. Do you think Los Angeles is on a crash course for more foreclosures? When do you think things will change for San Bernardino and Riverside? And should they worry? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you're subscribed to our free weekly email newsletter so you don't miss out on any foreclosure reports, plus the Southern California housing market report. We do several of these throughout the month. And check out this video on buying foreclosures at Trustee Sale. Thanks for tuning in. This has been Christian Walsh, real estate agent with Wire Associates, and we want to hear from you.